Woo! Here we go. Another episode of Behind the Book Live. I got to tell everybody, this is a great day. Me and Craig offline already talked about this, but guys, today and girls, it's all about the human connection. I'm here with my man, Craig Fisher, straight from Texas. What's up, Craig?
Richard, it's great to be here. I'm so glad that we're finally doing this together. This is going to be fun.
Dude, it took us forever to connect, man. Wasn't it like we planned this like about a year ago?
Yeah, at least. And we've been hanging out online forever, and this is the first time we're doing this side by side, so it's really good.
And before we even jump into it, today is draft day tonight. Drafting players is just like recruiting. Am I right, Craig? A little bit?
It absolutely is, right? So you've got free agency season, which is sort of right before the draft comes up, and then either you're hunting for sharpshooters or you're going to develop talent, and that's the same thing that you're doing with the NFL draft.
I love it, man. So real quick here, I'm just gonna throw this up here before we, Hiring Humans, man. This book, I'll tell you what, I read some of it. It's amazing. So what came? Just give me a little 2-minute tour about yourself, real quick, and then we'll dive into the book of what you came up with.
Yeah. So I came up in the recruiting industry through big staffing, right?
Yeah.
Matrix Resources was sort of my training ground. And I've done every job there is, right? Sales and recruiting and leadership and ownership. And eventually I was teaching my customers how to brand themselves better and be better employers to make my job to recruit for them easier. And, this is just sort of my inbound marketing technique to A, get business, but B, add value. And that became kind of a business in itself, right? People started asking me to come speak at their corporate fireside chats or sales kickoffs or, whatever. And I was, invited to speak to thousands of people at some of these things. And I'm like, this could be something. So it became a business of its own, kind of a thought leadership consultancy. And so all these ideas have been in my head forever. Like it's pretty straightforward stuff. Treat the people that you're going to hire as if they're already your coworkers, because they're your on deck circle, right? I mean, this is the team. This is your future team. They're your colleagues already. And so if you treat everybody with that mindset, then you can easily get in the right headspace to do a good job with recruiting and candidate experience.
100%. So, okay, the book, Hiring Humans. We all talk about AI. AI is in our brain 24/7.
Yeah.
You're going back to the human connection. What made you come up with this book?
So, interestingly, I was one of the first people, and with my team at Allegis Global Solutions, where I, led some RPO things for a few years. We implemented one of the first chatbots on a corporate website on a careers page, right, for DXC Technology. And this was a Paradox chatbot. It was literally one of the first ones, and it was not very smart. And we had to teach it. And now, a lot of this stuff is built into your chatbot implementations for recruiting. But at the time, the first thing that people would ask the chatbot when they get there is speak to a recruiter. Right. It's just like pushing the 0 button when you get into a phone tree. You're trying to talk to somebody live. and I thought to myself at the time, well, that's always going to be a thing. People are always going to want to talk to a recruiter or a hiring manager, regardless of how much automation we have. And so while I developed my prowess and skills with these automated tools, and, I review new technology every day. And I love it. I'm a tools guy, but the basis of hiring is relationship based, right? And that's what recruiters need to be doing.
100%. Okay, so before we even start into, I got to throw this picture up here because it's in your book. And I'm not going to lie, when I seen it, I thought that she pulled us out of a magazine. Tell me what, Craig, this is you, buddy, and your family, right?
Yeah, that's me in the striped shirt. My sister next to me, we're in the middle with our dog. My dad there with the mustache has our cat. And my mom has our gerbil it looks like a hamster ball. And everybody was in the photo. This is, kind of.
And what's the story behind that, having that in your book?
So I'm a big proponent of, sharing some things that are slightly personal about yourself. online. So people get to know you better before they even have to decide whether or not they want to do business with you. They can feel like they know you a little bit. And so if you're just this button down job title person, it's difficult to find that, connection when you reach out. Do I
Mhm.
want to do business with this person? Do I want to be recruited by this person? Do I want them to sell me anything, or are they going to add value to my life? And so I like having three things that you can kind of show about yourself. And, that family photo is just kind of an example of culture is real. This was the culture when I was growing up. And boy, we had fun in those days. And so it's just kind of humanizing me as a person.
Which we know we both grew up. We talked offline about this 70s, 80s, and 90s, man. It
Yeah,
was all human. There was
that's right.
no technology basically at all.
Yeah, yeah. There, I mean, the technology during that picture's time frame was an 8-track cassette player.
Listening to Woodstock, like you said, right?
That's right. We listen to Woodstock a lot.
Oh man. So let's jump into the book here because there's some good chapters in here. There's a lot of good stuff. I think one of the big things is when you said know thyself. I think
Mhm.
this is so true about just me looking at other people out there. They're saying they're trying to be like somebody else. And I think this chapter is about just being yourself.
So it's about two things, right? Who are you as a person and what you have to add to your network, right? And I use
Mhm.
this 5-to-1 give to ask ratio that I think we'll
Yes.
talk about later, right? But it's who are you? What do you have to offer? And then who are you as a company? And what's good about working at your organization transparently? Not just bullet points that somebody in marketing made up, but what's the authentic value of you as an employer? And so you kind of have to audit your process, walk through your own job application, and understand where are your pitfalls and what kind of experience are you trying to give your customers who are job candidates.
Yeah, 100%. And then we go into we talk about the audience. And I think this is one of the biggest ones. Everybody, I'll be honest with you, Craig, a lot of people you talk to, they don't know their audience. They're just thrown out there hoping somebody is attracted to that. How do they single that down? Like we're in recruiting or staffing, or if you're
Yeah.
manufacturing, how do you get your audience?
Yeah. So a really good way to start is with something I have used in marketing called an empathy map. And this is how brands figure out who their customers are. And
Mhm.
so you think about a specific job role and who are the types of people who excel in this role? Who are you likely to be able to hire? And how do you go out and find them and attract them online? So you kind of walk through the exercise that says, all right, who is this person? Average person is male or female in this age range. They have this sort of background. They have maybe this sort of lifestyle. They do these things. They use these websites and these social media sites. And so it's an exercise in figuring out what are their habits. What are their time frames? Are they night people or day people? Who are their influencers? And where would you want to serve up a job advertisement to them? And how would you use good messaging that appeals to them to say, here's what's interesting about our company that you might be interested in, instead of just trying to blanket it
Oh,
with generic generic things. You want to really dial it into the exact person you're trying to recruit.
and something I think we're missing in the industry. A lot of people just posting anything out there. Like, what is your take on this posting like job ads and just says like we got plumber, 50 different ads in one little segment out there on Facebook. Nobody's looking at that stuff anymore, Craig. I mean, the only person liking that is the internal. How do you change that up?
So it's interesting, Richard. I say that every job search starts in a search bar somewhere, right? So whether it's on Indeed or Google or Bing or wherever, and that Facebook ad might show up in a search on Google. And so while people aren't on Facebook doing that search, they might be on Google doing that search and it might show up. So there's some value in it.
Mhm.
I wouldn't spend a lot of money doing that. But depending on who you're trying to attract, plumbers may very well be on Facebook and Instagram as much as anyone else, right? Electricians, trades, things like that, and not so much on LinkedIn. So you kind of have to, again, know who you're talking to and understand what social sites they might be using. But then uh, the other things that you have to kind of keep in mind is if you're going to do paid advertising, boy, you can waste a lot of money doing that, and quickly. I mean, I deal with companies that have, $1 million plus Indeed budgets, and a couple of tweaks can save them $250,000 a year quickly sometimes. So you have to really know what you're doing, and don't just take what your recruitment marketing company tells you as gospel.
Any tips with that? Because I see like the marketing department and the recruiters are disconnect. Do you ever see that with companies?
There's a big disconnect, and sometimes marketing wants to own all that advertising budget, which is fine, but marketing doesn't really know recruiting, and it's a different animal for sure. And so lots of times when you're dealing with a recruitment marketing or a job advertising agency, they're going to show you statistics that are based on how their customers are doing. So they'll say in your weekly meeting, well, you're doing great compared to our other customers. You're right in line. Maybe you want to spend a little more money here or there, but compared to all of our other customers, you're doing great. Well, that's not necessarily good versus industry standard, right? So those are nonsense numbers. And you have to look inside of your campaigns to figure out, am I just wasting money here? Are we starting all the jobs on the East Coast and rolling them out across time zones to where, we're out of money in the Pacific Northwest by the time the job gets over there, by the time 7 a.m. rolls around over there. And that area is always crying for more candidates. I mean, you have to look closely and really dissect what you're doing, and not just put it on autopilot.
100%. There's a strategy behind that. It takes time. You really have to learn the algorithms and what to do on that. So I'll tell you what, in your book, you had Ross Dress for Less, which I go to Ross. I mean, I love it. Yeah. But you got to tell me in the book, tell everybody a little bit about what's going on there, because it was such a great case study that you did there. It's amazing.
Yeah. So it's funny. Accenture became this RPO business for their warehouses for Ross Dress for Less. And Ross was using dozens and dozens of staffing companies to staff these warehouse positions. They wanted to consolidate it and bring it more in-house. And so they had an outsourced team in Accenture's RPO consolidate everything. But Accenture didn't know how to do recruitment marketing. So they're like, how are we going to get candidates for this? And you can't just go source a bunch of warehouse candidates. That doesn't work. Where are they? Right. So you have to advertise to them, and you have to do some sort of boots on the ground advertising as well. And they couldn't use their own marketing department because they were too expensive at Accenture to use their marketing team. So they reached out to me and my team, and we were able to figure out a plan quickly that combined, digital billboards and bus advertisements and taxi cabs and all kinds of things, yard signs even, and banners, in addition to the digital advertising spend to really communicate. And one of the most interesting things we did was we found a restaurant nearby one of the competitors, and where a lot of these warehouse workers went on a regular basis, and we offered to buy them new menus in exchange for us putting a job advertisement in the menu. And by golly, did it work. It was fascinating.
That is amazing. And I love, as you know me, Craig, I love that community recruiting. I do delivery service. I tell people Pizza Hut and all that, just put a box top on hiring. That's going out to everybody.
That's right.
It's amazing. So basically what you did, you took the whole community and brought them together with an awareness for Ross.
Well, yeah. And it turns out that people go to work at places like that with their friends and neighbors, right? And family, and they bring those people along. Hey, I got a pretty good deal over here. Come over here. That's how it works. And in that one warehouse, it was in a small town in Pennsylvania, right outside of Harrisburg. In that warehouse, there were something like 32 different languages spoken.
Woo,
amazing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so your blanket advertising isn't necessarily going to work great. And it was a town that had 96 warehouses total, but like a 16,000 person population. So they're up against, Amazon and all the big Walmart.
Highway 70, let me guess, in Pennsylvania.
That's right. Yeah, that's it.
Just row after row.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's amazing. So are they continuing to do that now? What you did when you jumped in there and did that? Or are they, what kind of recruiting are they doing now?
Yeah, so a lot of the best practices that they use now are things that we set up. We built their advertising library, images and messaging and all that stuff, and that's all still in use. They call me occasionally when they're looking at new technology or automation or AI or something like that, and get my opinion on what to look at and which direction to go and what fits with what they've got. A lot of what we did for them had to do with their applicant tracking system, because their jobs were coming out of the applicant tracking system looking like they were 3 years old, because they were reusing templates in the applicant tracking system without creating them sort of net new. And so we were able to fix their ad spend in a heartbeat. I mean, that was a really quick fix for them.
And talking about the job advertisements, it's just something we could talk about right now, because I see so much stuff. It's just a carbon copy of something they did 20 years ago. It's so generic on Indeed. It's almost looks like a spam.
That's right.
Can you tell anybody out there how to spice that up? I mean, we're in 2024 now.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about it, my team has been doing this wonderful exercise for one of the, let's say, the world's largest bank. It's a very popular bank, and I'm not
no name.
Yeah, but we're rewriting all of their job descriptions, right?
Yeah.
And it's a huge undertaking. But there's a formula that really resonates with most job candidates, and part of that is talk to the candidate first. So you're this type of person. This is your line one in your job ad. You're this type of person. You like this kind of challenge. We're looking for people like you. Imagine what we could do together. Right. So rather than saying you'd be responsible for this, this, and this, talk to the person about who they are, right? So that they can opt into that job better. And that sort of thing really resonates and sets your job description apart in ads on places like Indeed.
100%. And you know what I love to do? I like to put the text and the number right there in the top. You know what I mean? So they can text and jump on the ball. I don't think we need all this stuff. You have to have a personal appearance and all that blah. That's when you meet them. Don't you think there's a lot of fillers that people don't read?
There is, and there's too many bullets in most of these things, right? In your requirements, no more than 5 bullets. In your nice to haves, no more than 3 bullets, right? Keep it tight, and then ask some knockout questions in the first screen before you send people to a full job application. Because what happens is, especially if you have Workday or something like that, you're sending them to a place where they have to log into a screen with either a phone number or an email address. And in the case of many of these, like warehouse workers, for instance, sometimes they don't have that. They go to the warehouse and apply, and a recruiter or a hiring manager on site creates a temporary email address for them to be able to apply to this job. And so getting back into that system is problematic, and there's all kinds of technical things that you could do better for a good candidate experience in that situation.
So what's your take on this, Craig? When and I did this back in the day when I was looking for a job 15 years ago, you have to go to the site, set up a password, all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, are we in a day and age now where we can't keep doing all these major steps? A lot of people are just walking away from that. What's your take?
Yeah, you don't have to do that, right? And so there are landing page and chatbot options that can create and update a candidate home in your applicant tracking system. And that's really what you should be doing as an employer. It's a better candidate experience. You can get the short apply process done that way. And then if the candidate looks like a match, they answer their knockout questions or opt-in questions, as I like to call them, well and appropriately. Then you send them, all right, we need a little more information, and you keep progress going. So people will keep going if there's progress. And then you make sure that they have written down all the information. People don't keep track of the jobs they apply for anymore very well. And so you want to make sure that you're top of mind. They know that you're still engaged with them, and avoid ghosting in this manner just by good communication.
Dude, we need to call the Ghostbusters on half these recruiters out there. I swear, right, Craig, it's like, I think when they get them through the initial process, then they forget about them for a week or two. They're gone by then.
Yeah, they are. That's exactly right. And so you need progress. It needs to happen quickly. I've been watching my 19-year-old son apply to jobs, and he's just distracted. That's just.
We're all distracted these days,
That's right. And so if you're not all over it, he's not going to check his email. He's going to forget.
Yep.
He's not as dialed in as he should be, but that's just job applicants in general these days because we make it too easy to apply. So you can just click, 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 and you've
Oh,
applied to 30 jobs and you don't know what's what.
I hope they stop that. I know Career Builder and some of them other ones, I hate to say it, but they had that quick click. You could click like 30 job applicants in 1 minute. And then you call them up and they're like, what job did I apply for? They don't even know.
Right. Yeah. And Indeed makes it a little too easy, and LinkedIn might make it a little too easy. But then there's the opposite. It says quick apply, and you apply and you go through 30 pages of a job application. And, I kind of apply to jobs for a living, right? That's sort of my business is checking that candidate experience out. And I can tell you that it very often goes unchecked, and recruiters and hiring managers don't know what's happening. And so they wonder, why aren't we getting more of the right applicants for this? They haven't leak tested it.
No, and they haven't. And I think a lot of companies, and this is a knock for them, I hate to say it, but like they just want to collect resumes,
I hear this a lot. I hear recruiters talking about employers and job seekers a lot, talking about employers who are admitting to posting a job that doesn't have a real job behind it. They're just pipelining. And I mean, I hate to believe that that's true, but I guess it is.
It's happening all the time, especially in light industrial. Dude, when I get them on the phone after I meet with them, they're my Facebook friend and everything. They can't get rid of me. It's like, we're like part of our family. It's like, and I think that's the bad thing with recruiters, because they're like, are you just the same recruiter as the other one? And that's why I joke and I say, I'm a job agent. I represent you, Craig. And that's totally different because it's happening all the time. And even with your son out there, you got to tell me, is he getting like people to call him back, or is he getting ghosted too?
So when he just applies online, mostly he gets ghosted. When he walks in the door of a place and says, I'm here to apply for a job, then he gets a job. I mean,
isn't that amazing? Like you got to get the effort to go in. So the online stuff is lacking right now.
It is. And so with big, big organizations, Home Depots and companies like that, you have to apply online first and then wait for them to get back to you to schedule an interview before you go to the store. Now, while that sounds good, it's not necessarily very efficient, and they do lose a lot of people in the meantime. So there are easy tweaks that can be done to fix these things.
And that's something that maybe AI will pick up down the road and stuff like that. But it's the human connection still at the end of the day. Pick up or send an email and say, hey, we're not interested right now, or something like that. Just at least closure.
It's the combination, right, of a little bit of automation plus good human connection and recruiters that understand about relationships. And that makes a super recruiter right there, right? Taking some of the exasperating things off your plate that aren't actually recruiting activities, allow candidates to, self calendar an interview and things like that, and get some knockout questions automated so that who's opting in appropriately, and you can easily get them scheduled. And these things can make a recruiting operation much more efficient. Now, I say that doesn't mean fire all your recruiters, because who's going to build the relationship when you walk away from a candidate experience that's bad? Even if you're not a fit for the job, how likely are you to refer someone to that job or to even shop at that place anymore?
You know it, man. Okay, so the $1 million question in 2024, is AI going to replace the recruiter, Craig? We got to talk about this because it's the human connection. Yeah. So tell me what's your take on it, brother?
Yeah, no, it's not.
100%. No, it's not.
No, I mean, do you remember when we're in the 90s, we got email and the internet, and everyone's like, oh, this is going to replace recruiters. No, it didn't. It's just a tool. And then, hey, we got mobile phones and iPhones. Oh, yeah, this is going to take the place of recruiting. No, it's just a tool. AI is also just a tool. Somebody has to wind the clocks. Jerry Crispin says this, and I wrote it in my book. I quoted him. AI doesn't work by itself. It's just not, doesn't work that way.
No, and I think the hype is some recruiters might be eliminated if you don't recruit. I mean, being honest, if you're just sitting there sourcing and you call yourself a recruiter, you might get eliminated after a while, But the market's going to be. I mean, we need a human connection. It's here.
Yeah. The other thing to think about, I build these custom GPTs for some of my customers, right? And I work with big enterprise level companies, but you can't just trust what a GPT writes and says and does, because they, you have to give them a tone of voice and you have to write all these rules, and they still give you flowery language and weird answers to things. And so you can't just trust any of that. It still needs people, and that's going to be the case for a while.
100%. And we'll give a shout out to Matt here. Like he said, keep it updated and fresh, man. Yeah.
Matt Buffington. All right.
In the house, Matt is. So the 5-1 ratio, we got to talk about this, Craig, because this is something that's very important. And I think it's the core of recruiting and the human connection. So go for it, my man.
Right. So very often when employers try to encourage their staff to talk about the company, right, the front line of that is going to be recruiters. And then if you're any good at it, you try to get the rest of your employee population to jump in and say, yeah, we're hiring for this and that. But mostly they give their people just job openings to post and maybe the occasional company news. And that's not really helping that employee or recruiter build their network of, possible candidates or referrals. And so you want to give something valuable to your network 5 times before you ever ask one time. Oh. It's a variation on the 80-20 principle. Gary Vee suggests this for sales and marketing. And I suggest it for recruiting. And it's the 5-to-1 give to ask ratio. It's very easy to remember. Give 5 things that are either interesting, educational, humorous, right? Or something that is giving value to your community 5 times before you ever say, oh, and by the way, we're hiring if you know anyone, and build trust over time. And if you keep this sort of ratio in mind, you'll eventually be to a point where it's in the back of your head and you'll be thinking, gosh, I haven't posted anything valuable recently. I need to keep that up because I know I've got a job coming up that I'm going to need to ask for referrals for.
Yeah, it's always thinking ahead, seriously. And then jumping into the branding, I see you had a big subject on that, which I love branding. You know me, man. I'm 24/7 branding myself. But the thing is, though, it's about having fun with it. You know me? It's all about entertainment first and then bring them into your culture. But do you think right now recruiters need to brand themselves? I know the brand, it could be a big staffing firm and you're branding that. But now we need a personal brand ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And how are you going to set yourself apart, right? Job candidates are getting bombarded by dozens or hundreds of recruiters right now. And how are you going to set yourself apart? And that, when they go to check you out online, check out your profile, can they even find you, first of all? And then second of all, what do they see? Is there anything interesting there that might make them want to do business with you or want to work for your employer? So you've got to be a little fanatical about loving your employer and your job online and your coworkers and promoting other people, and then posting things about yourself that are slightly personal, right? Remember the beginning of our conversation, I said everybody should have 3 things. And for me, forever, it was my kids, my pets, and travel, right? It's my family, and we live by the lake. And so I've got these things that I feel comfortable sharing with the world. And, I used nicknames for my kids forever. They were numbers 1, 2, and 3 sons. So I wasn't technically putting everything out there. So there are ways to share your personal life a little bit with the world without sacrificing your security.
And I think there's a point where you go over, you could overkill it about yourself. You know what I mean? Like just you're on a billboard. I think the whole thing is bringing everybody into your life. Like you, Craig, I see all your stuff out there. I know you have a fireplace and you're out there having fun by the pool, because you're bringing everybody on your social media into your life, but it's also, you're having fun with it too. I think the biggest thing is for branding yourself, you got to smile and have people around you. People like that positive energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I sort of perfected the art of the selfie early on. I'm like, okay, cell phone, internet, I SEO, I got this.
Yeah.
And so I would take pictures of myself in all kinds of crazy places and with all kinds of crazy people. But then I would title these photos things like Craig Fisher, recruiting operations, employer brand consultant, recruitment strategy, with all just long tail keywords. And so now if you go, search on Google for employer brand strategy, Dallas, Texas, dozens of pictures of Craig Fisher show up. And so it's not really just about hubris and wanting to see pictures of myself. There is an actual SEO strategy behind it.
Always a strategy, Craig. Always,
That's it.
man. So thinking outside the box, before we wrap things up here, man, because this book's amazing. Everybody say think outside the box, but how many really do it? I mean, Gary Vee sums it up. I can give you 5 strategies and you can follow these. And guess what? They take the book home from the conference and never use any of them.
That's right.
So what's your take on this?
Yeah. So we don't teach enough the strategy of thinking outside the box. So I'm all for actionable takeaways from a book or from a presentation or whatever you're watching to try to level up. But the thing that you need to do is think about, well, how did that person come up with that? And why would that be important? And what could I do that's different? How could I leverage what I've got to offer and the tools that I have around me to be better than my competition? And if you're constantly kind of thinking that way, then you do come up with, hey, I'm going to long tail SEO title all these photos that I've taken myself at all these recruiting and employer things and events. And you do come up with I'm going to put my job ad on a menu at the local restaurant. But it's not just one strategy. It's not just one idea. It's the idea of thinking in terms of big ideas.
You nailed it there. And that's seriously, I put QR codes out at the bar with coasters. It's like a combo of everything. It's like football. It's a defense. You mix up with prevent, blitz, everything. And I think you just can't live on LinkedIn. And this is something, Craig, you got to tell people out there, because I preach this all the time. You got to have more platforms than just LinkedIn, because people just live on there, live and die on it.
It's funny. I get asked all the time, and especially now I'm I'm past my 40s.
But sure.
Yeah. And I'm a man. I'm not a kid. And my peer group are like, why are you on Facebook? I'm like, I recruit people on Facebook. I do a lot of business on Facebook. I bring people into what I do on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and you name it, I'm there. And it's not because I want to, absorb all the chit chat on social media sites. I mean, that's great, but I want to be part of the network. I want to be part of the scene, and I want people to be able to easily find and connect with me. So like you, I would invite all the people that I recruited and hired to be friends on Facebook, like immediately, customers as well. Yeah.
And that's, what so many people say, that's my personal page. I don't want anything. Craig, we're in recruiting. Everything's open. Why would you have a personal Facebook if you're in recruiting?
That's exactly right. And when people ask me, should I have a professional page? Well, sure. But all the interesting stuff is on your personal page. So just don't post anything that you wouldn't want the world to see, because trust me, one day everybody will be able to see everything anyway, regardless of how private you think it is. So don't post anything that you wouldn't want everyone to see in the first place. You know what I always sum it up like? I love Kenny Chesney. I always say, you know what? If you're a celebrity, they don't post crazy stuff unless you're out there. They keep it like for their fan base. So just think the same way and say, hey, this is something my fan base would support, and this is something they won't support, so I won't put it out there. Yeah. A little bit of behind the scenes stuff, a little bit of professional stuff, a little bit of fun stuff. Absolutely. It's okay to put a cocktail out there. I always say, before we wrap things up, what do you think of the professional pictures? I'm a firm believer of just natural pictures these days. I mean, I know, we call it the Owen Mills, back in the day, the glamour shots. What do you think of that still as a photo for your recruiting? So most of the professional profile pics and headshots that I ever get are terrible. I'm not great at smiling, even though I post a million selfies. You got like a badass look. Like when you're like taking pictures, it's like I smirk. Like Craig's here. There's a lot of smirking, yeah. But I know what works for me. And when you're doing a professional photo, they're always trying to get you to tilt your head funny and smile and do stupid stuff, and it doesn't work for me. So I don't love professional headshots. And I think if you have good lighting and you can buy a $3 clicker, or even your Apple Watch can remotely make your camera take photos. Yeah. So get the lights on you, set your camera up somewhere, get a decent background, and just, be a fashion model and click away, and you'll come up with something good. You're going to love this real quick. On my page, it has me sitting on a beach, with a phone, like I'm recruiting, like people love that. Seriously. I ask people, how do you see me? Like, dude, you're sitting on the beach recruiting. Who can't want to connect with you? Is that crazy? No, I never think of that stuff. I love it. So my photo in my iPhone that people see when I'm in text groups and when I text them
Yeah.
is a picture of me. I've got a big coat and a scarf and mirrored sunglasses, and I'm in front of a Kroger grocery store.
Get
And,
out.
and everyone's like, "Man, your Kroger picture is showing up huge on my phone." I'm in this wallpaper. I'm like, "Oh,
But you
okay,
know what?
cool.
That's what they remember, right?
That's
The
right.
whole
Yeah,
time, the Kroger pick.
that's it."
Oh man, before we wrap things up, okay, so any final thoughts on the book that you want to give, like a couple insights out to everybody? I mean, we're going to post this up here where they can check it out at and buy it because it's incredible, but
Yeah.
any other insights you want to give?
So the principles in this book are really customer experience principles, right? And they work for sales, for marketing, for recruiting and hiring, certainly. And there's also a really good chapter in there for job seekers. It's not a long book, right? It's thin. It's short. You can get through it in about 25 minutes.
I love it.
Right. And so it's a pretty good list of things to do if you want to do candidate experience or customer experience, right? There's some tech things in every chapter. There's a list of takeaways in every chapter. So it's a lot of fun.
It is. And here it is right here, guys and girls. Yeah.
Hiring-humans.com is the place to get it, or Amazon, Barnes and Noble, your favorite bookseller. Yeah.
Hey, that's a great tagline, man. You did a great commercial there. You know, we should just clip that and put that on TikTok, right?
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. And then I got to throw this up there again too, man. This is a little bit of stuff here. If you guys want to take a screenshot of this, man, I mean, Craig's been everywhere, buddy. The chatbots, AI, you know it. I mean, the clips I read of this book, man, it resonates with me because I love the human connection, man. I think at the end of the day, the embrace, the fist pumps, the handshakes, that's what it's all about, Craig.
Richard, I hope you will think about coming to Dallas in November. On November 8th, we have the TalentNet Live Conference.
Yes.
It's going to be at Linux International's global headquarters. And we'll have about 300 talent acquisition leaders and their teams, some staffing professionals, and a bunch of technology to show off. And we're just going to get in a room in a safe place and exchange ideas and have a really good time. TalentNetLive.com for details on that.
That is, and anybody's invited pretty much, right?
That's
it's
right.
Open.
Yeah. Like I say, it doesn't matter what your role is in talent acquisition, or even if you're a job seeker, we're all colleagues.
Can I wear my Pittsburgh gear in Dallas?
Yes. There are plenty of Pittsburgh fans here in Dallas.
Oh, they're everywhere, right? That damn terrible towel. You're like, man, you can't get rid of it.
That's right.
Before we go, I just want to reach out to and give a shout out to the sponsors, Advanced Partners here. They put the FUN, fun in funding. If you need funding, you need to call Advanced Partners. Well, hey, Craig, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate this time, man. I'll definitely be in Dallas. You guys, you got to get the book. One more time, I'm going to throw it up there real quick. I mean, seriously, 25 minutes, you could have it lunchtime. You could read it during lunchtime.
That's right.
Be ready to rock and roll. And Craig, where can they reach you at? I know you're on LinkedIn. You're on all platforms, correct?
I'm on all platforms. You can pretty much Google Craig Fisher and the word recruiting, and you'll find me.
And he'll get back to you. Am I right?
That's right. I respond to everything.
All right, brother. Hey, thank you so much, man. We'll have to chat sometime soon, buddy.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
That's a wrap. We'll talk to you soon, guys. Take care.